right, welcome to episode 11 of Hot Dog and a Handshake with Mike and Sean. Just like in episode 10, you only had Sean Coletta. In episode 11, you just have me. So we're going to get through it. And this time, let's see, I had an excuse. I was in Vegas having a great time. I'm not quite sure what Sean's doing, eating dinner, I think. So we're gonna keep chugging on along because we have a very special guest this week, the Heroes and Legends heavyweight champion and Legends champion, the Flowin Samoan, Anthony Toatele. How you doing?
Hey man, pretty good. Thanks for having me on your show.
Absolutely. This has been an interview I've been trying to get since we started doing these. Obviously, you got the strap now from the Heroes and Legends, and what better way to have the champ on the show?
Yeah, man.
So we're going to start off right away. We'll go right on back. When did you first find pro wrestling?
So I can remember some of my earliest memories when I was a really little kid, kind of revolve around pro wrestling. So my earliest memory of pro wrestling had to be when I was 3. I have a younger brother that's 2 years younger than me, and so at my grandparents' house, my grandma had this little makeup desk setup thing with and she had all this eyeshadow and stuff, and so me and my brother used to paint quote unquote our face like Sting and the Road Warriors, and everyone always talked about that as we were growing up, and so that's my earliest memory of wrestling is just doing that, because we must have been, my dad was a big wrestling fan, so I'm sure he had us watching it when we were infants, so I'm sure that's how we came across that.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. It's just, so is that your favorite wrestler then? Were you into the face paint kind of guys, or?
Honestly, at first I was really into, every kid, I really liked Hulk Hogan, Ultimate Warrior. Sting was my dad's favorite wrestler. Obviously as I grew up, I kind of got my own taste of things that I liked, and guys that I like to watch. But yeah, those are my earliest memories of dudes that I really, really was into as a little kid.
I could see that because the way you wrestle, I could see some Surfer Sting in there.
Yeah, man, Surfer Sting was the man.
That's great. So then, so you are of Samoan heritage.
Yeah. So
and so were you obviously the Samoan dynasty in pro wrestling is deep. So did you follow those kind of guys as well?
Honestly, being Samoan didn't didn't really make sense to me. It wasn't a thing when I was a little kid. And then obviously as I got older, people started noticing that I looked different, right? That I was slightly different than everybody else. So then my mom kind of explained it to me, and that's how I kind of came across The Rock. The Rock was the my biggest hero in wrestling ever,
Sure.
Because of his Samoan heritage. And so yeah, unfortunately I'm not related to the the Roman Reigns, the Usos,
the Hanoi family.
Yeah. I think it's just me and Samoa Joe are the only two Samoans out there that aren't related to them in wrestling. But yeah, so once I kind of realized who I was and kind of what made me me, I started watching a lot of those dudes.
Yeah, it's awesome. That's really good then. So like I said, that's with this. Do you feel like that, it's maybe hindered you being of Samoan heritage more than you?
Yeah, I don't know if it's hindered me. I don't know if it's really helped me, honestly. I think it's just being in the Midwest, if anything, it's just kind of a star next to my name a little bit, but I don't think it helps me in any way or hinders me. I hope people just like me for my wrestling style, regardless of what I look like or where I come from, right? So
absolutely, that's what I was wondering, because obviously that you kind of get that people like to talk about the Hanoi family, the Hanoi dynasty, and how they kind of just had an open door to the WWE, and anybody that wasn't of the Hanoi family kind of got left to the side, so I didn't know if that was something that you thought of when you were getting into wrestling, hey, maybe WWE will pick me up, or did it just not cross your mind?
It didn't really cross my mind. Honestly, I came from the world of football, so I was really hoping that WWE would just see like some random tape of some good looking kid that used to play football.
Sure.
And they're like, oh, he's a football player. Like, let's pick him up. So
They've always been a body guy. So
yeah, like, and you know how WWE loves their ex sports guys to bring in. So
absolutely. That's great. That's great. That's what I was going to talk to you next. I remember seeing a lot of photos of you playing football. Did you play football all the way through high school?
So I played not all the way through high school. I really didn't get into it until my senior year. I mean, I kind of dabbled in it and like just liked the game, but it wasn't until after I graduated high school that I like fell in love with the game and tried to take it seriously. And ended up somehow magically ended up on an arena football team
Wow.
here in Fort Wayne at first, the Fort Wayne Firehawks. Got invited to practice. I was working behind the counter of the hotel where the team was staying at, and the head coach talked to me. And then from there, I was in camp in Indianapolis, and then in Chicago before I quickly realized I was not going to go to the NFL. So
now, was it just your size, or was it what made you feel like you couldn't cut it?
I think a lot of it is size. I played quarterback, so not that I'm not a tall individual, but I'm definitely not your prototypical 6'4", Peyton Manning type of quarterback.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I think that definitely didn't help me. And just, experience. There's always in the world of indoor football, arena football, they're always looking for the next guy that can help them win games. So it's very much like wrestling. If you don't do well, you don't get invited back. Like you could be on the team for 1 week, be practicing all week, have a bad game on Saturday or Sunday, and then they tell you like, hey man, we're bringing somebody else in, we're going to release you. So
no job security.
Yeah, no job security. So it actually thankfully kind of prepared me for wrestling a little bit.
So that's what. So when you decided to come home, and was wrestling gonna be right away, or is it something you just kicked around?
It's something that I've always kind of like kicked around. Like I was super into wrestling because of The Rock, obviously, when I was younger, like 12, 13. Started playing football, and then guys at that time that were really coming in hot were like Kurt Angle and Brock Lesnar. So I started doing amateur wrestling back then too.
Yeah.
So it's something that I always kind of like liked, me and my friends liked. But then it's funny because a buddy of mine and we would just, before practice or after practice for football, we would just hang around and watch like wrestling highlights or wrestling shows that he had DVR'd on his TV in his apartment. And eventually I was like, man, this football thing's not working out. Like, what if we just tried wrestling? And he's like, what do you mean? And I was like, I don't know, like wrestling. Like we've always kind of like joked about it and like talked about it, but like, what if we just tried it? And literally, we were sitting on his couch in his living room, and that was it. We just decided we're going to try to be wrestlers.
It just hit you like we're going to do it. So when you got the bug, you got the itch, you're like, you know what? Let's just do it. I mean, did you know who to call? Did you know like where to go? Like, did you know how to become a pro wrestler?
No. So I mean, there's all those books out there, and there's all this stuff on the internet. So we start Googling, and we, obviously we've watched enough of that the WWE TV shows to know that you have to go to school. So we start Googling for wrestling schools, and that's how we came across Jason Maples, Body Slam University. We gave him a call. He invited us to come in. I was like, all right, man, like this is real. We're gonna do it. We're gonna go visit next week. And yeah, man, it was an interesting visit. It was not what I was expecting, but looking back on it now, is definitely everything I needed it to be.
Now, I remember going into checking out Body Slam myself, and did you get the bug the second you walked in, or were you kind of like, oh man, what did I sign up for?
Yeah, so definitely was the second one. What did I sign up for? So I mean, because for me, not that I played on any, like the indoor football teams that I played on they didn't have any team, facilities or anything. But that's kind of what you're expecting. Like you read about wrestling schools online and whatever. So Jason invites us in, and, we pull up in it, it's in a storage facility, and, the garage is open, and Congo Kong, Steve, is there, and he's training some folks like Mark Vandy and some other guys. And I'm like, dude, what the hell did we like walk into. Like, and Jason comes out, introduces himself. We sit down and talk a little bit. And so both of us were really like the first day, like we liked what we saw like in the ring. It was just not what we were expecting, right? Because we were kind of expecting like this performance center-esque type of environment.
Weights and all. Yeah.
And it wasn't. But thankfully, I was just like, you know what? Like, we'll give it a shot. Like, all we need to do is just try it. And it ended up being like the best training. Like, I can't imagine training with anybody else in any other facility. It was awesome.
We had Steve on as well, a few episodes back, and man, what a trainer! We could talk for days about Congo Kong and the career he's had, but what people don't know is the amount of people that he's brought into the business.
Correct. Yeah. So Kong is an awesome trainer, and now that I'm obviously a little more seasoned and I've been around a little bit in locker rooms and stuff, like, I'm glad that he was the one that trained me, because not only did he train us for what happens in the ring, but he also prepared us, as young men, for what happens outside the ring, and how to navigate, some of those stickier situations that you'll come across. So
Sure.
I can't speak
probably like shady promoter kind of stuff, or
like that. Just how to get yourself out of sticky situations when people wanted you to do things maybe you don't want to try or you're not comfortable with.
Sure.
All these different things. So that's why I tell everyone, like, Steve, Congo Kong is Anthony Toatele's wrestling dad. Like, make no mistake about it. I'm one of his kids. You know what I'm saying? So I love Steve, and he's just been an awesome person in my life.
Well, the Heroes and Legends locker room, everybody's sitting around Steve,
Yeah, absolutely.
It's just, he's a general, he's constantly telling people, hey, that you did that wrong. He's not afraid to tell you fucked up. He's not afraid to say, you messed around. Right. So, but anyway, this ain't about Steve. This is about you. Right. So when you came in, now you're training. How long did it take you to get the first match?
I think I trained for about 3.5, 4 months before I got a chance to get in the ring, like, for real, in front of a crowd. So, it didn't, there was no like time frame. That was the cool thing about Steve's. Like, he didn't put a time frame on us. Like, you had to train for a year or 6 months. It was just when he felt like you were prepared to go into the ring and you weren't going to hurt anybody and you were going to put on a show and everything was going to be good. So, it was awesome to kind of be able to do that really quickly, because I think for me, like, I'm a hands-on learner, and I definitely learned real quick once, like, the lights are on and you're standing in front of people.
Lights, camera, action, right?
Yeah. So you can't mess that up, because people are, people paid their tickets and they want to see a show. So that's when you gotta perform.
Now, you've performed mainly in Indiana?
Yeah. So mainly in Indiana. I've dabbled, gone to Illinois, Michigan, Ohio. I've been to Memphis, Tennessee, Pennsylvania, Pittsburgh. So yeah, mainly Indiana, but I've gone a few other places. But Indiana's my home base for sure.
Sure. I mean, there's plenty to keep us busy around here too. So now you got that first match in. When do you feel like you started to get good? Like, where people maybe should take notice?
Yeah, honestly, it wasn't too long after that, mainly because I just kept, I was a big gym rat, like, and I don't mean like going to the gym and lifting weights. I've always done that, but like, just getting in the ring. So that was like my thing. After I got my first match, I told my buddies and anyone that was like wanted to come that I was training with, like, hey, let's get this extra work because I want to get as good as possible. So I would say it probably only took me a few matches before I think I started hearing like rumblings about people wanting to book me and, kind of reaching out to Steve. But, it just took a few times to get in front of the crowd and get comfortable in your own skin and figure out kind of what you're all about. So, I would say about 5 or 6 matches in is when I was like, oh, okay. Like I can do this. I'm getting used to this.
That's good. So like do you remember, do you remember your first opponent?
Yeah, I'll never forget it because it was actually against Congo Kong down at New Era Pro Wrestling in Shelbyville, Indiana. It was against him, Hillbilly Jed, who is an awesome guy,
Oh yeah.
awesome worker,
That's a
and
name I haven't heard in a while.
yeah, and the guy by the name of Mouse, who I'm not sure he works anymore. I know he does a podcast down there. So it was me and the rest of my basically training class at the time, the four of us versus the three of them. So it was super cool to just be able to get in the ring with them, and it was kind of like our graduation, a little bit of a graduation ceremony.
Yeah. So that's good. So like, so obviously the first match happens, few matches more happen.
Yeah,
When
yeah.
when was your first? I mean, obviously you're probably in title contention almost immediately in places you went.
Yeah, maybe. I never really paid attention to that. Like, so it's funny because a lot of pro wrestling guys, especially when they first come on, like they've got a journal and they write all of their matches down and their dates, and just because it's supposed to help you keep track of everything. I was the exact opposite. I never kept a record of like how many matches I've ever wrestled or who my opponents were, like unless it's out there floating around on social media or pictures or videos.
Sure.
Just because for me, like I that's a lot of pressure you put on yourself. So for me, I was like, hey, I'm gonna have fun doing wrestling. I'm just gonna do whatever they want me to do,
Yeah.
or what I want to do. And so yeah, it was definitely.
Something
I just
happens,
noticed.
something happens kind of thing.
Yeah, I just noticed that I started going from tag matches, like tag team matches with some of my guys that I was training with, and then I ended up like wrestling in singles matches, and I was like, oh, okay, like we must have turned like a corner at some point. Like 2 months in, I just and I was only wrestling probably 2 or 3 months or 2 or 3 times a month because I've got a family and I've got
Sure.
weekends are hard, so and yeah,
Yeah.
you got to work. So it was funny just because I can remember, I can't remember exactly what show it was or anything, but I just remember going to the show thinking I was going to be in the first match, tag team match, whatever. And I was like, no, your third match in a singles match against this guy. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. Like that's new. All
Yeah.
right. And that's kind of when I realized like, all right, so I must be doing something right in front of everybody. Yeah. Everyone's kind of getting on. And it kind of just took off from there.
So then, Body Slam. Obviously, been in contact with Jason. You've been at every Heroes and Legends, correct?
So I wasn't at the first one, the very, very first one when Bret Hart came to Fort Wayne. Yeah. I was at the second one. I was at the second one as a trainee, so I was in working security at the time for Jason. Sure. And then ever since then, I've been on every single Heroes and Legends show in some form or fashion of wrestling.
Yeah. And then that led to probably some you and Billy Gunn, right?
Yeah. So I think if I remember correctly, my very first big name that I ever wrestled was Shannon Moore. When we did the first one at the ice rink.
Sure.
So that was super cool for me because again, I was still pretty wet, and I'd rubbed elbows with guys like that in the locker room, but Shannon Moore was somebody that I watched like growing up. So
yeah, but WCW guys, right?
Yeah, WCW, and then he was with Matt Hardy in WWE, and
yep.
So when I got the chance to wrestle him, I was really excited, and I was surprised because I still felt like I was pretty early on in my career, to be getting a match like that. But thanks to Jason, like I got that opportunity, and it was a good time, and I thought we had a pretty solid match.
Yeah, I can remember the match now. That so then after that was I believe at 4 or 5.
Yeah,
because I think we did 3 and 4 was we did a couple at the hotel.
Yep.
And,
we did a couple there.
Yeah, the Ice House. How'd you feel when we moved into the Memorial Coliseum in Fort Wayne?
So I thought that was like the coolest idea ever. Because I'm originally from Fort Wayne. Like I grew up in the Fort Wayne area. So
sure.
Obviously you hear about wrestling when wrestling comes to town, like WWE, WCW back in the day, they were going to the Coliseum.
Yep.
And surprisingly, like I've never been to a WWE show when I was a kid growing up. Like my parents, like I'd never been to a wrestling show, period. I liked it. I watched it on TV. Me and my friends talked about it.
I've never got to go live. Yeah.
But never got to go live. So even when it came to Fort Wayne, like it was just, my, parents are trying to make ends meet or whatever. So
yeah, no, absolutely.
When Jason said that it was going to the Coliseum, like I was like, man, that's super cool for me, because growing up in this area, knowing that that's where the big shows go, and now knowing that I'm on a show at the Coliseum, super exciting.
When, what was your first match at the Coliseum? You remember?
I believe it was Billy Gunn. That was my first match.
I can remember the match, and people were chanting. They wanted Billy to win, and I'm trying to remember the chant because it made me laugh. He goes, somebody told him to make you stop or whatever. He was like, I'm trying. Yeah. Like he couldn't.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah,
you were so quick, man. I remember just watching you in that match going, I think he's ready. I think that was the match that like I realized that like I think he's ready for the big time. Just the way you were fluid, you were quick, and obviously you got the respectability that night. So
yeah, Billy Gunn was actually a super cool dude. My wife was kind of like, they knew each other from before, just happenstance, but
yeah.
So he was a super cool guy, and yeah, man, like that was for me, like that was the biggest test, because again, another dude that I watched as a kid growing up, but also like growing up and then getting into the business, everyone talked about Billy Gunn being this awesome worker, like just being this awesome pro wrestler, and he was good at everything he did. So I was like, well, I gotta bring my A game, and hopefully we don't we don't shit the bed in this, because he's going to be expecting, a good match. And thankfully, like we went out there and we had an awesome match. And yeah, Billy was, it's one of the coolest memories I have of pro wrestling, is getting to wrestle Billy Gunn.
I remember the crowd was like really behind Billy at first, but like by the time the match was over, they were just having a good time. Like,
yeah, man. Yeah, I was trying to get. Because it's going to be hard. That even though I'm a local kid, like he's Billy Gunn, I am not Billy Gunn. So it was kind of cool to like. I could sense that during the match. I was like, oh, they're into my stuff. They're into like what I'm doing, not just his stuff. So that was a super cool moment for me.
I loved it too. So after that, when did Jason start talking about, maybe putting the belt on you?
It had been, I would say like at least 2 shows later, I was still involved with the bigger name guys. Like Russ Jones is one that I remember, Shane Mercer. So once we started bringing those guys in, and I, with Drew having the championship, and obviously Kong was there doing his thing. Sorry, there's like tons of sirens over here.
It's all good.
But it was, I feel like they're like right down the street. It was really like then, once those guys started coming in and getting involved in Heroes and Legends, I think Jason was like, we're gonna need someone like you to be a part of the whole thing. Just because there was a cage match that we had when it was majority of those guys were in it. And
that was with Nick and you. Yeah.
Yeah, and Nick Cutler was another one. Like once those guys started becoming like the main event top tier levels, top tier guys at Heroes, that's when I felt, I was like, all right, like kind of made it, you know what I'm saying? Because now Jason's looking at us to be the guys to make sure people are coming back and watching his product.
Yeah, and that's great, because when you won the belt, obviously you had a great moment where your kids were in the ring with you.
Yeah.
Explain that. How'd that feel?
It was awesome. Mainly because, my daughter, who's going to be 12 this year, has been like along with me on this like pro wrestling journey since 2013. So she was only like 4 years old when I first started training. So for her, for me, I thought, that's all she's known, that like I kind of do dad does that on his own. And then my other kids, like at the time, I just had my son. But it was super cool. Like family means a lot to me. So, and especially my kids, man, like I think it's cool as a message to say, like, your dad is a normal dad, but I also have other goals. And so no matter what, anything else that is going on in your life, you can get to those goals and accomplish them as long as you're doing the right things and making the right decisions and, putting in the work. So
you got a standing O from the crowd. Everybody was pretty happy to see you win the belt. So, obviously we had Drew for so long. And then after you win, we decide that it's going to be champion versus champion. Right?
Yeah.
We're going to put you in the ring with the now defending Legends champion and longest reigning Heroes and Legends heavyweight champion, Drew Skills. That what was going through your mind? I mean, you were gonna. I mean, this was going to be the show. I mean, this is the first post-pandemic show, right? And it was kind of all on your shoulders, man. Whether or not it was going to, take off. Well, how'd that make you feel?
Honestly, I was a little nervous for sure but I wouldn't have wanted it to be any other way, especially with Drew. Another guy, a veteran, super good guy that kind of really guided me, especially early on in my career, provided a lot of advice. He kind of looked out for me. So I don't think I would have wanted it any other way. And, Drew is, I thought we had a pretty good match. And now people can it was good to be the exclamation point on that first show coming out of the pandemic to show people like, hey, we're getting back to normal.
We're back. Yeah. And it was such a hot crowd all night long. They were ready for wrestling and you guys delivered, man. Now you're double champ, right? I mean, you got the Legends champion, you got the Heroes of Legends championship.
Yeah. Double champ, double belts, two belt Toatele or whatever.
Anthony two belts over here.
Yeah.
What's next, man? What's next for the Flowin Samoan? What I know we got Heroes of Legends coming up in October, and I think you got a pretty good challenger.
Yeah. I super excited about that. Elijah Burke, man. It's funny because I'll touch upon it a little bit, but the very first WWE show I ever went to, what Elijah Burke was at ECW, and that was an ECW SmackDown show.
Yeah.
So for me, like, it's super special to wrestle in the Coliseum against this dude, my only WWE show that I've ever been to in my entire life. And he was the main event of that show.
Sure.
And now he's going to be the main event at this show with me. I'm super excited about that. I think that, again, we're coming out of the pandemic, things are getting back to normal, and it's been a little bit longer. So I think people will come out in droves, man.
I don't know, ticket numbers or anything, but it's got a lot of buzz. I mean, we got some huge names coming in just for autographs. We got a great card headlined by you and the Pope. I mean, what could get any better, right?
Yeah, I mean, and then you saw, and it's funny because I was telling Jason, like, there's all those Samoan dudes on the poster. I said, man, It's like a family reunion over here.
Yeah, you got the Samoan dynasty, right? Rikishi's going to be there.
Yeah.
I mean, let's say having a Samoan a group in Heroes of Legends. Would you be the leader?
I don't know if I'd be the leader, but I'd definitely be in line. Whatever. You want me to? Whatever Rikishi asked as the head Samoan there, and then I'm in.
You're in. So anyway, when it's all said and done, and I know you got many years left, but when it's all said and done, what do you want, like, your legacy to be in the ring in the wrestling world?
Yeah, honestly, I don't know if you want to call it a legacy, but I really just want people to remember that, like, whenever they watched me, they came to a show that I was on, that they had a good time. They liked my style of wrestling, and it was something that they could, that they were used to seeing on TV. Because again, for me, like, I never got to watch anything that wasn't on TV in real life. So I think it's cool to kind of give kids and even adults, man, that maybe don't get to go to WWE shows, like, just a little bit of that feeling that, like, man, this is exactly what I thought it was going to be. It's as cool as I thought. This show is as cool as I thought it would be. It's just as cool as WWE. So I hope people think about that when they think about me wrestling. And then, the same thing with my kids, man. Like if people have dreams and they want to chase them, you're not too old. There's plenty of time. Like just chase your dream, do the right thing, and do it the right way. So
that's all. That's all we can ask for, right? I mean, leave this world a little better than it was left for us, right?
yeah, like obviously when you're younger, you want to get signed by WWE or whatever, and I would love to get signed by any company for wrestling. But at the end of the day, I'm just taking care of my family, having a good time wrestling, and it's a cool spot to be in.
Now, you've went to the training center a few times, haven't you?
I've never actually been invited to no. So I don't know whose leg I gotta pull or shoulder I gotta poke at, but I mean it would be a cool experience, especially now that I'm a little bit older and a little more disciplined, and I feel like honestly like I'm in the best shape of my life right now than I was maybe 5 years ago. So
it would be a time to go down there.
Yeah, it'd be a cool thing to try. I would be interested.
And have you ever done any of the extra work though? Have you ever been on WBTV?
Surprisingly, I have not. My wife has. So she was an extra before, right before we actually got together. She was an extra. She did like a little loop. So I've never done any. Again, I don't know whose shoulder I got to poke for that, but
come on now.
Yeah, I think I got one call from a guy that I was a friend with that is in the business that asked me to like drop everything. I think it was on a Monday and roll up to Chicago for a Raw. And I just ended up, I was like, hey man, I can't do it. Like I got kids, I got other responsibilities. So
yeah, we can't just leave work, right?
yeah. So, but at some point, if it rolls around again, I'm gonna for sure jump on that bandwagon.
Definitely on the bucket list, right?
Yeah.
If you could have, because I did post on there, we did have a question from Ryan Anderson. I think Ryan, our resident ring announcer, right?
Yes.
He wanted to know if out of anybody, what would your dream opponent be?
Oh, dream opponent. If we're talking like active guys right now, AJ Styles for sure would be AJ. Just because, I think he still can go. He's like now I feel like he's even better worker now because he's just been around for so long, so he knows so many more things. So yeah, I would say AJ Styles for sure.
He's more polished and not as flashy now.
Yeah. That's exactly how I would describe my evolution in wrestling.
Yeah, it's perfect. I mean, when you first get in the business, you think I got to get my shit in, and then you start realizing, hey, wait a minute, there's kind of a story to be told here, right? So
yeah, and I think that's probably going back to one of your original questions. Like I think that's kind of what helped me move ahead a little bit was, thankfully I was a young guy, but I didn't really, thanks to again to Steve, I didn't really care about getting all my shit in. I did to a degree I did, but I really like telling stories, man. I really like getting the audience invested in what we're trying to do and the message and the story we're trying to tell, because at the end of the day, that's what it's about. Like moves come and go. Everyone can do a move, especially today.
Yeah.
So
yes, but yeah, getting that psychology is the next step.
That's right.
And that's probably what's great about doing these Heroes and Legends fan fest shows. Now I know you do your normal, you were wrestling for Warriors a couple times, right? You did like FWF. I remember Funkified, right?
Yeah, that's one of my mainstays.
But when you do these shows at these fan fests, there's so many different styles of guests at these shows. Do you find it do you just try to pick everybody's brain, or are you just more try to just leave them be, or how do you do that?
I try to get good conversation in with guys that I'm not usually around, right? Like the bigger name guys. Obviously don't want to annoy them or anything, but I definitely like to listen into whatever advice they're offering, especially if they end up watching my match. So I think that's pretty cool that's happened before and they give me some advice. So but I think the coolest thing, and I bring, at least I feel like I bring 100% to all of my matches, but For some reason, when we do Heroes and it's here in Fort Wayne, which is again my hometown where I live now,
Yep.
and it's in the Coliseum, it's almost like I bring 100% to all my shows. That one gets like 120%. Mainly because I've got a lot of non-wrestling fans that I know that are my friends and family that they come to that show because it's here in Fort Wayne and they know it's in the Coliseum. So
easy to get to. Yep.
Yeah. So that's a bigger, not that it's a bigger deal, but it becomes a little more heightened as far as like my awareness and my want to do really well.
Well, if people wanted to, obviously support your journey, how would they go about doing that? Where can they buy your stuff?
Yeah, so I have a pro wrestling tee shop on prowrestlingtees.com/Anthony Toatele. I haven't had any new recent wrestling t-shirt designs, but I've got some pretty cool ones out there right now. Honestly, pro wrestling I'm getting slowly back into it after the pandemic. I've been doing been training in some other ways, doing some Brazilian jiu-jitsu. So hopefully I get to bring some of that stuff over to pro wrestling too. So
yeah, whatever makes it better, right?
Yeah.
Now, where can they follow you on social media?
So you can follow me on Twitter at Anthony Toatele. You can follow me on Instagram at Anthony Toatele, Facebook page. So I've got it all. I try to be as interactive as possible with my fans. Just give me just give me a little bit though. Shoot me a message because remember I got three kids. Two of them are under two and under. So it takes a lot of time out of my day.
And obviously, if there's anybody looking to book you, that's also available, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Reach out to me if anyone's, if there's promotions. I definitely feel like I've got plenty of film out there on me, and I'm more than willing to talk to anybody that's willing to listen to my spiel and what I'm all about, man.
Great, man. Definitely. I'm looking forward to October. Look forward to seeing you again. It's like a big family reunion every time we get these shows going together.
Me too.
Long days, but so worth it, right?
Yeah, man. It's one of the better times in wrestling for sure.
Like I said, I appreciate you for stopping by Hotdog and a Handshake, man. Like I said, it was one of these interviews I really wanted to get in, and we finally got it done. And you got an open probably anytime you want to come back, man.
Hey, man, I appreciate you having me, and I will for sure have to do this again. I enjoyed the conversation. So
I appreciate you, guy.
Have a good one.
Later.
Hey, this is Anthony Toatele, the Heroes and Legends heavyweight champion and Heroes and Legends champion, Toatele. Anthony Toatele, Anthony Two Belts Toatele, I guess now. Anyway, you're listening to Hotdog and a Handshake podcast. So thanks for listening.